G'day, folks. AOS Coach here, and we are here to talk about Slaves to Darkness. Just not any Slaves to Darkness, but we have a new Darkoath. I should move my hand so you can see what I'm actually showing off. The new Darkoath supplement to the Slaves edition, Slaves to Darkness, Slaves edition. I was going to say that we've got this the 4th edition coming up pretty soon, so we are going to talk about the models. We'll talk about who they are. We're going to go through a little bit about what the rules are going to be. Now, keep this with a grain of salt here, because as we transition to 4th edition, probably not going to keep all the rules moving in, but it's going to give you a flavor of what you can probably expect for them in 4th edition. But more importantly, if you are an eager beaver and you build it and you want to take it to your local store, or maybe a final hurrah in 3rd edition tournament, we're going to give you a bit of a sneak peek of what you can expect and maybe how many boxes you might want to buy if you're thinking about buying multiple boxes. Now, Games Workshop did send me this in advance. You're obviously seeing this on release. So if you want to pre-order it, first off, Games Workshop, thanks for sending it. You know the spiel. But if you want to support the channel and help some of the initiatives like the Battle Report Initiative project that I'm working on now, do click some of the affiliate links, whether it's Warpfire Minis in the USA, Element Games in the UK, or Gap Games in Australia. All of your clicks will contribute to, I guess, taking over YouTube, but more importantly, just helping build out the studio. And you'll get some battle reports in the very near future, more likely 4th edition. But my guest for today is Martin Orlando, devotee to the Ruinous Power, extraordinary painter, friend of the channel, and you've probably seen him if you're in the American tournament circuit. You will see him either on the gaming table or majority of the conventions. You'll often see his painting on display. Great player and a great painter. And I'm excited to talk to you about the Darkoath, Marty. Welcome, g'day, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah.
We did a Armies on Parade video around COVID. Jeez.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that was the video I swear I said, oh, this will be done in 6 months. Like, I'm pretty sure I said, like, yeah, this whole thing will be done in 6 months.
How times have changed. But I'm glad to be back and glad to see you doing well. Look forward to the next time. Oh yeah, it was great to see you at the World Championships of Warhammer. It was great to see.
And LVO, and I'm Mr. Worldwide these days.
Exactly. Well, thank you for having me back. It's cool to talk Slaves to Darkness. And thank you, Games Workshop, for sending me a copy of this in advance as well. Probably around the time this video goes live, there'll be some pictures up on my socials of some of the things I painted. Sadly, mine are not in front of me. The box right there. Busy working on those things. I have a long delayed family trip the day that the pre-orders are supposed to go live. So I will be probably on an airplane to somewhere far away when the pictures go live and everything. But yeah, I was definitely interested when they showed off the box. I'll probably be painting a few of the Marauders and my signature style. Did you want me to talk about how I managed, like, Mr. Elf Painter Man got into Slaves to Darkness? Would you like a little story time there?
Sure. I mean, I was just wanting to ask you introduce yourself, but if you want to go into story time, I would absolutely. By the way, for the people listening onto the podcast, I'm being a tease and I'm actually showing off. Now, I only got these models literally about a week ago, so I have furiously rushed off to build them up. Painting is clearly in a week to build all these. Has been a bit of a challenge, but they've been a lot of fun actually. And I'll get you to share a little bit about maybe about what got you into Slaves to Darkness, and then actually let's talk about the box and the experience, and then let's go into all the Darkoathy goodness that is within this box. And by the way, I found out on Warcom today, Australia and New Zealand, I'm sorry, you've been delayed. No surprise, but we are delayed. I don't know how long we're delayed for, but Warcom mentioned it in this week's reveal. So sorry, Oz. Just have to wait a little longer.
The wait is worth it.
It's a good box. It's a really good box. Legitimately, it's a good box. And I say that because I'll share my little quick story. Slaves to Darkness, the new box that came out, I got really excited and I wanted to do some Slaanesh Slaves to Darkness. And I went out and started kit bashing some of the old heroes from Fantasy Battle, so Dexessa and Azazel. And in that process, I got obsessed with the Darkoath War Queen. And I'm like, oh man, I want more of this. I want more of this. And that project got kind of paused for a little bit. And this has rekindled my passion. I'm like, yes, the Darkoath War Queen, Tolga, the little free, not free model, the model that came from the GW events in the US and the UK circuit, that kind of slots in nicely. I'm so glad that Darkoath is getting expanded because it's a range that I've wanted the Chaos Marauders to go for a long time. Haven't gone just yet, but hopefully these replace them. But they're a sweet kid. And it's what I expected from, because you can't have just keep warriors and
Yeah.
like if warriors and bloody, what are they called? I'm sorry, Varangard and if you just keep like more and more armored people, then where are like the corrupted common folk who haven't yet ascended up the chaos ladder? But what's your story?
So I got into Slaves to Darkness around the end of I think it was the second third edition GHB, which was the Galatian Veterans one, which was Bounty Hunters like extravaganza. And playing Lumen at the time, especially in I would say the Philadelphia and New York regional sort of Northeast tournament scene, a lot of players favored those hyper aggressive armies, which really took advantage of bounty hunters, especially Iron Jaws or when Sons of Behemoth released. That took off quite spectacularly in my area. So it was almost like everyone had a Sons of Behemoth army and then another destruction army with bounty hunters. And so I was sitting there with Teclis and my spearmen, and I did well at one tournament here or there. But then I was quickly noticing it's like I have been struggling a little bit, and I'd like to try and maybe pivot. I played all I can for Lumineth for right now. Let's try something a little bit more aggressive. And I was looking across the different ranges, and I wanted maybe not necessarily Stormcast at the time. So I looked into Slaves to Darkness, and I had this sort of narrative, tournament, competitive, melding epiphany where I decided to kind of create my own like faction, almost like a Cities of Sigmar army, but used the Slaves to Darkness rules for all of that aggressive counterplay and Varangard being some of the best shock cavalry in the game. But then all of the Warcry units had this opportunity for conversions and interesting themes. And so, over, I would say, about 3 months at the beginning of 2023, I built and painted a whole Slaves to Darkness army from scratch, kit bashing as I went. It was a lot of hard work, but I got it to Adepticon on time. Nothing was unfinished, and I had a great time with it over the past year, little over a year now. And that's kind of where I've been at, playing Slaves to Darkness constantly. Doesn't look like most worshippers of the dark gods, but if you ask them personally, they don't consider themselves worshippers of the dark gods either. However, the army list is where it ultimately you meet pay dirt there. So I guess that makes me a Slaves of Darkness player now.
You are on the ITC, I think, ranked 21 on Slaves to Darkness, just under Jordan from Seasons of War. So I think that is a rubber stamp enough for you to talk to me about Slaves to Darkness. The box is a sweet box.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a really cool box. It's a great story, and I think that's one of the exciting things about Slaves to Darkness in general. Is what drew me to Slaves to Darkness is the fact that I wanted to make mine Slaaneshi, right? So it allowed me to look at this traditional Chaos Warrior and go, right, well, I could paint it black and gold, like you see this traditional, like undivided type of, very neutral type, or you could go in with Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, Tzeentch. You could go in and do whatever you want to do. Lean into Be'lakor, lean into the various elements of, like I've seen some really cool armies where they've kit bashed each of their Varangard units to be one for each of the Chaos Gods if you run multiple units. Like it is a really nice army to convert and paint. I don't want to do any more trim. First off, like once you do Slaves to Darkness trim, I think you're like, yep,
Yeah.
I've done trim. That's enough. But this particular box is a nice refresher, right? Because you don't have to paint those traditional metals. You don't have to paint those traditional Slaves to Darkness colors. There is a really nice expression when you look at the box. And it's something that I've appreciated while I haven't put any paint on it just yet. Seeing the flesh, seeing the fur, the horses, those horses are on roids or something because
Mhm.
they are much bigger than a Cities of Sigmar horse. They've been eating some corrupted vegetables or something because the carrots that these horses are eating they're huge, they're massive. There's some really interesting heads, like building up the kits. They've got various faces with masks, or you see man heads, woman heads. You're seeing various hairstyles. There's a lot of creative expression when even just building the kits. There's a lot of spare parts that you don't often see in kits these days. They're often like what you see on the box is what it is, with a couple of heads here or there, but there's a couple of weapon options. Your fell riders have swords or spears. There's a lot of good opportunity to play around with the models in the box. That's at least what I've expressed in the
Right.
last experienced in the last couple of days.
If I may add, it's always important to try and find your own way sometimes with these kits, because when we experience them in the marketing materials, it can sometimes be whether it's the lighting or how quick the backgrounds, and sometimes the default color schemes that they ascribe to them, which are very much for Slaves of Darkness. It's fire and brimstone, very much a ruined Akshi or Varanspire, grays, browns, volcanic colors. And if you so much as apply maybe switching that out for, as you said, like the Slanesh or maybe the Nurgle or something altogether more original, because of how the Marauder kits are designed, they don't really have that much, as you said, in the way of metal and things which are expected to be a particular color. You can go quite all over the place with vibrant leathers and furs and all of that musculature on the different horses. And um, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to do with not a lot of models. It's a very nice sampler platter of how to run the army without all of the tin cans, as it were. And I think there's a lot of cool things, and especially with contrast paints, because contrast paints often work best on these surfaces with a lot of the muscle and the fur, which is most of these pieces in that box. I can only imagine people giving it a shot with maybe some maybe like an airbrush zenithal and the contrast, like the slap chop thing that Rob has done, or Vince has done in a video before, and maybe like in a weekend getting that whole box painted up in a way that is completely different from how it's presented on the cover.
Yeah, it took me between building up the leader, the 20 troops, the 5 horse, and the Wilderfiend, what, probably 4 hours casually, like just
Mhm.
sitting there watching TV, just, between dinner, talking to my wife, like just building casually. 4 hours, like you could probably knock this out pretty quickly. Then to your point, you could probably paint this with contrast very easily within 24 hours if that was your goal. But there's also a lot of detail, so people who want to go out and paint it and do a wonderful job, or at least go in and put those multiple layers, you also um, it'll keep you busy for a while.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the box, and the box you can read more on Warcom. As I mentioned, it has 20 Darkoath Marauders, it has 5 Darkoath Fellriders, and there is a multiple weapon options for them. Um, You've got a Chieftain on Steed, and you've also got a Wilderfiend. So that's what comes in the box, and we'll talk about the rules in a sec. But overall, cool box, interesting box. Yeah, really easy to build as well. I will give them that much. Like there's very little mold lines, connects really well, and a lot of interesting choices. So
Yeah.
that's what you can expect if you buy the box. But let's talk a little bit about who are the Darkoath. Have you had an opportunity to get into the weeds of the Darkoath? You've alluded to the
Uh,
fact that they are across the mortal
yeah.
realm, so they're not just from one
Yeah.
particular area.
Me personally, not necessarily too much. Like again, because I only got the box relatively recently. I am aware that this is somewhat intertwined with the thing that we've seen Brand and his warband, which were in the Warhammer Plus Hammer and Bolter show. They have a few episodes dedicated to vignettes of the Darkoath and their quests across the mortal realms. I'm pretty sure these are basically what has become of citizens who were left behind, left to chaos in all its forms after Sigmar closed off all safe haven passages to Azir at the basically at the beginning or sometime in the middle of the Age of Chaos. I'm aware of. I was starting to read about the Wilderbeast. The Wilderbeast was very interesting to me. Sort of like this. It's both a guardian and a curse that lingers around the Darkoath camps. That was I definitely want to take a closer look at sort of the narrative there. But that's basically all I've really had the opportunity to pour over in this tome.
Let me continue the narrative. So first off, in the book as well, so you do get this little supplemental PDF about, I don't know, 20 pages maybe. So it's only small. It's like 30 pages of document. I think a good 20 of those pages are lore. It talks a little bit to your point of what you said about the Darkoath being a faction or a part of the Age of Sigmar world where they are the humans that I guess Sigmar left behind. So they really, through the Age of Chaos and now through the Age of Sigmar, have not had the blessings of Sigmar, if you want to quote it, the blessings of Sigmar. But essentially at the same time, while Sigmar and friends kind of see them as savages and cannibals and, not very bright, these are the people who have fought through, really challenging times. They've adapted to the world and they have gone through chaos. But the thing about the chaos is that they don't traditionally worship Nurgle, Slanesh, Khorne, Tzeentch. They worship elements of the chaos god through the ruinous powers, but through their various actions. And the Darkoath are very much kind of almost unaligned, mostly because their relationships with the chaos gods are very transactional, where basically they are going to go to battle, so they want to get something for the battle. They do the thing for the battle, and then they receive the benefit of the battle. And when you think about that very transactionally, you'll notice this thing called the Oath Stone, and it's on all of the models. It's in their lore, and you'll notice on their war scroll for third edition. Who knows what fourth edition looks like? But on third edition, they all have oaths. And if you've played Darkoath in the past, you'll see an oath where it's like make a charge with a roll of a 7 or control an objective you didn't already control, and you get this extra benefit. Cities of Sigmar has the same rule, for example, with the Free Guild Guard. If they are sitting on an objective they didn't own, they get a 6+ ward, Merry Christmas, oath accomplished. So all of your Darkoath units are going to have this Oath Stone, which allows them a rule. And then to your point around the Wilderfiend, it is basically when a chieftain, don't quote me on, I'm pretty sure that, don't quote me, I'm not 2+ tough, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. If a chieftain fails their oath too many times, so if they've made a promise to the chaos gods, they fail it too many times, they basically become a spawn, or essentially a corrupted spawnish, and that is the Wilderfiend. So the Wilderfiend is a former leader of the tribe. It kind of hangs around, and as you said, is a blessing and a curse. And there's some really interesting rules when you look at the war scroll to see how this kind of comes to life as well. So it is a part of the army, but it's not necessarily like a friend that you bring to the local drinking session. They kind of sit on the fences watching, but also they need sacrifice, whether it's you or your enemy. So that's kind of where the Darkoath lore kind of comes in. There's a lot more than that, my little elevator pitch, but I think that does allow a very interesting expression of hobby and painting and just, like, how do I bring this to life?
Oh yeah.
Let's talk rules. Yes, let's talk rules. All right, so we've got a bunch of rules.
I'm pulling it up now on my phone so I can also see it too.
Just making sure you didn't have a point to talk about with the law, but
No. I wanted to emphasize that I did create it. It's almost like the army I created is it's called the Mirrored Edge for a reason. They are a mirror aspect of all of the everything that we understand about the Chaos Gods in the Warhammer world. I tried to twist it into a heroic virtue. And so Khorne, instead of being all about bloodlust, they're all about knightly valor. They are the shield, the castle wall that guards the realms of men. So I'm definitely interested in trying to do a mirror version of the Darkoath while maintaining relatively at a table glance that those are clearly Darkoath Marauders, for example, if I wanted to use them in my army list, but I have to make sure that I appropriately create a mirror version of them in whatever army I choose to make for them next.
I'm sure that it's not going to be hard.
Yeah.
Darkoath Chieftain on Steed is the first model that we'll look at. So there is already a Darkoath Chieftain on foot. That's something already part of Slaves to Darkness range. But now if you want something on Steed, it's good to see the horses are definitely not dead, and they're not definitely restricted to people like Cities of Sigmar. The humans do have, the Darkoath do have their own version. So what have you got here? You've got a movement 12, save of 5 up, bravery of 8, 7 wounds. The leader has a cursed weapon. The horse has blade, mask, and a iron shod hooves. You'll see the attack profile up there. Range 1, 4 attacks, 1 attack, 3 attacks, 3s and 4 combinations of to hit and to wound. Rend 1 or rend nothing, and then some various D3, 2 or 1 damage. So enough. It's not a world beater there, but you're also, as you can see down below, only paying 110 points for it. So it's not going to be your Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon style hero, but certainly will be enough to start leading your forces of Darkoath. Although you may question if this wants to be your general, maybe it's more of a secondary hero rather than making it your general. But I'll leave that up to you. A couple of rules there. You've got the death blow with unmodified hit roll of 6s with the cursed weapon, which is what the hero on top has. That'll do 1 mortal wound in addition. You've got Destined for Glory. When you pick this unit to carry out a heroic action, you can either pick 2 different heroic actions for this unit to carry out instead of 1, or you can carry out the heroic leadership action twice. You can't do other actions twice. It's just specifically heroic leadership. I talked a little bit in the lore section about the Oath Stones, and here is the Darkoath Chieftain's version of the Oath Stone. If this unit was the first friendly unit picked to fight in the combat phase after it has fought, this unit fulfills its oath. So, fight first, oath fulfilled. Once this unit fulfills its oath, until the end of the battle, add 1 to the wound roll for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly mortal Darkoath units while they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit. It's single, it's a leader, it's not unique, so you can have multiple of them, and 110 points. And you see a bunch of keywords, specifically Eyes of the Gods, which is also on all other Darkoath heroes. So you get to play with the Eyes of the Gods table.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts so far for this 110 point champion?
He's not bad. It's a good way to get those chump stat lines up a little bit. Like, I know all you have to do is make sure that one of them fights first. I don't think there's a way to give him always strikes first. So I think it's just important to keep in mind that you don't because there are certain Chaos Lords that you can also have in your army who might have the fight first ability on the charge. So you don't want to catch yourself out if you want to make sure that this ability activates in the correct order for a given combat phase or something like that. But other than that, I have the Darkoath units in mind when I'm taking this unit in an army list. And if you want to make sure that those Darkoath Marauders, for example, are as offensively powerful as possible, this is one of those pieces that contributes to it.
Yeah, I'm just comparing it at the moment to, say, the Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount. Now, that's definitely better, don't get me wrong, but you're also probably paying, I'm just bringing up the points to see how much a Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount is worth.
I believe it's 160.
Yeah, 160 currently. Yeah, it's 160.
Yeah.
So again, like comparable, right? Like obviously the oath of the war leader, that oath stone ability is one of the reasons why you're taking it to get plus one. Many people have talked in the past on how really good +1 to wound is in the game, and being able to give it to all Darkoath models wholly within 12 inches of this unit is going to it's worth its weight in gold. I would if I'm building a Darkoath force, or I'm building a Slaves to Darkness with a contingency of Darkoath, I'm probably going to take one of these units, except if I'm just taking them for pure chaff. If I'm just taking them to screen and chief bodies and that's all, I'm not investing in extra people to support them. They're there to die. They're there to claim objectives. They're there to be annoying, nothing more. But if I'm actually building around at least part of my army to be Darkoath, I can definitely see the benefit here. The additional heroic action is nice. The stat line is okay. 7 wounds is nice. The 5-up save is a little bit concerning, but the 7 wounds hopefully helps there. But really, it's the Oath Stone that I'm really taking this unit for.
Yeah, I agree. And it's important that you can't be defensive with this character, because he has to, not only does he has to be selected to fight first, which means that you're building a certain combat phase in a player turn around this ability so you can get it. So you can't just put him behind a bunch of your Darkoath and try and play that way.
You've really got to be smart. You're right. You've got to be smart with the choice. You can't put him in the back. It's not like a wizard sitting at the back trying to support, but you definitely want to go into the fight with support. And maybe that's where the Fellriders will come into play when we get to them. But overall, I think it's a decent war scroll. You get what you pay for. It's 110 points. The fact that the Eyes of the Gods comes into play as well is interesting, because it allows you to get a couple of additional boosts depending on, I guess, how lucky your rolls are. I always don't like the randomness, but I know some people are absolutely love the Eyes of the Gods table. And
well, he is undivided, so you do get to re-roll one of those dice when you roll on there. So it's at least slightly more likely that you'll get something useful when you roll.
Yep, and you know what? If you can pull off that Aura of Chaos and get a 5-up ward, that changes the game dramatically. Even getting the Slaughter of Strength, getting rend improvement of rend of 1, right? You can get the Regrowth to heal a couple of wounds, which is nice. There's a couple of little boosts. If you can get that either Unholy Resilience for the 6-up ward, if you can get the Aura of Chaos for the 5-up ward, that puts a lot more confidence in this particular unit going in for the fight. Cool. Good unit. Overall, would you take this model in a Slaves to Darkness army? I'm not talking specifically your build, but if you were going to build a Slaves to Darkness army, including some Darkoath, would this be in there?
Possibly. It's not a no.
I think I'm definitely taking it. I think in certain ideas, I'm going to be taking it. If I'm going to take Fellriders, I'm taking it every day of the week.
Yeah.
If I'm building around the Marauders, question mark. But it's a good model, and definitely worth discussing. The next one, an interesting one, because it's not a leader. It's just a unit. It's just a thing. It's the Darkoath Wilderfiend, the former leaders of the tribe, now corrupted in all spawny goodness. Move of 8, save of 5-up, bravery of 8, and 9 wounds. You'll notice 2 melee attacks, no shooting attacks. You've got the Flesh Tearers more, 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, Rend -2 for D3. And then also the Razor Sharp Claws, 6 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, Rend 1 for 2 damage. So not bad at all.
Yeah.
You'll see that it has a lot of rules here. So you will see, like, what have you got here? So each time a friendly model is slain within 12 inches of a friendly unit with this ability, pick one of those units to receive 1 sacrifice point. So we've got some bookkeeping here, folks. Get your tokens out ready for your Wilderfiend. If the model is a slain Darkoath model, you'll get 2 sacrifice points instead of 1. Each friendly unit with this ability can have a maximum of 6 sacrifice points at any time. At the end of your hero phase, if this unit has 1 or more sacrifice points, you can say that it will bestow the Dark Blessing. If you do so, pick one of the following effects and roll a number of dice equal to the number of sacrifice points you have. Then it resets to 0. So kill things, things die, collect points, cash them in, go back to 0, get one of these benefits.
Yeah.
Marty, you still with me?
I am. This
All right.
is quite the casino game we have right here.
Cool. So get your tokens out, but you're only doing it up to 6, and
Yeah.
it's not too hard, right? A model dies within 12 inches. If Fire Slaves people can do it with the Flame Keeper, we can Slaves to Darkness as well. I believe in you. The options are you can be the Eye of the Dark patron, not supporting my patron, but supporting the higher power patrons. For each 5+, pick one friendly mortal Darkoath unit wholly within 18 inches of this unit. Until the end of the turn, the strike first effects to that unit. So Marty, you talked a little earlier about getting the Chieftain to strike first. Here's one way to do it. It's a 5-up, so probably means you want to cash in. You don't want to just cash in 1 or 2 sacrifice points because that could be completely wasted. You probably want to have a bunch of people get maximum 6 points in order to increase the chances of getting that 5-up.
Yeah.
The second one is the Mind Shroud. For each 4+, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of this unit. Until the end of the turn, that unit cannot issue or receive commands.
Wow.
That's a really nice one. That's a really nice one.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Warping Balefire. For each 3+, pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit. You can pick the same unit multiple times. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Models slain by this effect do not generate sacrifice points. Finally, you've got Dark Might. For each 2+, heal 1 wound allocated to this unit. In addition, for each 6, you can add 1 to this unit's wounds characteristic for the rest of the battle. So we have a ability that is generating points within a 12-inch range, aura, depending on if you are an enemy or a Dark Oath, or actually not even an enemy. It could be if a Chaos Warrior dies within range, right? You're going to get points. But obviously, if you're Dark Oath, you get 2 points. Everyone else is 1 point. You collect those points, you cash them out. Depending on how many points, depends on how many dice rolls you get. So you have 6 points. You get 6 rolls, you have 1 point, you roll one dice, and depending on which ability you pick, it's a 5, 4, 3, or 2. So there is a sliding scale. Which ones do you like? Which ones kind of like really capture your heart and mind right now?
I do like the Always Strikes First, and I definitely like the they each have their use. I would say the Warping Balefire, just like the unit suffers 1 mortal wound. We do operate in a game with some relatively high wound counts in certain armies, so they might not really take much of a beating from something like that. Because at most, even if you roll all 3s, that's 6 mortal wounds to something. That could certainly kill like a character if there's a supporting hero within range. But if you're fighting, say, like maybe a unit of Blight Kings or like a Mega Gargant, for example, that might not necessarily be as impactful. I do think it's interesting that the Dark Might, it happens on a 2+, but then also if you roll the 6, that unit gets an additional wound. Like if there are no I think only the Fellriders have 2 wounds each. So if you're usually picking either a character or the Darkoath Marauders, so you have a potential to take a relatively fragile 1 wound per model unit, and making them 2, possibly 3 wounds, maybe more if you want to look at the astronomically unlikely math. But I do find that relatively interesting, possibly amusing, but definitely interesting. So yeah.
No,
So
you're just adding an extra wound to the Darkoath Wilderfiend. Yeah.
this unit.
Yeah. Because the other ones do say pick an enemy unit or pick a Dark Oath unit. The Dark Might is for each 2+, heal 1 wound
Okay.
allocated to this unit, and then in addition for each 6. You can't
Okay.
nurgle the unit and get them from
I
1 to
thought
2 like
okay.
that. That
Yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
nice. No,
Yeah,
no, but
that
you're
that would be
increasing.
nice, yeah. But it's definitely a clunky interaction. Like we're playing a mini game here, and yes, it's only within this 12-inch bubble. And I like that we do get to play these mini games sometimes with our armies about this resource management. Um, but I think each of these abilities more or less has a utility to it.
I think the complexities are about to come, right? Because there are more rules, and
Hmm.
then adds an extra layer. Like when I look at this, you're right. The utility here, like every game, are you going to use all of them? Probably not. But when you look at, being able to shut off a command ability, that one is probably the most impactful. That's probably my go-to ability. If I'm thinking about how I use this would be shouting out all out attack, all out defense, any particular rally, redeploy, unleash hell, whatever it is, or anything that's faction orientated, that is a really good use. Then, depending on what you're looking at, whether it's the strike first to then get the oath of the chieftain, or thinking about how you heal this particular unit, allocating some mortal wounds to kill that blizzard wizard, or even to unlock yourself out of combat for them to go do something or to claim an objective. There's a lot of utility in those options. But is it worth taking in our army? Let's look at the other rules before we close this one out. The fell aura means that you can't see the model, so it's not visible to enemy models that are more than 12 inches away. So
Yeah.
not bad. If your opponent was trying to snipe it out for some reason, you can't, which kind of allows it to be nice and little full strength as it kind of moves up to the board and then do your thing.
Yeah.
Then there's the last rule, and then this is the one that I'm really torn about. And this rule makes me think: do I take this in my army or don't I? Because on one hand, for 170 points, it's getting in the expensive range. On the other hand, when you look at the cursed origins, you're like, "Ooh, actually, there's something in this." So each time a friendly Darkoath hero is slain, if any friendly Darkoath Wilderfiends have been slain, so Darkoath hero dies before Wilderfiend dies, you can roll a dice. On a 2 plus, pick one friendly Darkoath Wilderfiend that's been slain and set up again on the battlefield, wholly within 6 inches of a terrain feature or battlefield edge, more than 9 inches from all enemy units, with no wounds allocated to it, and with its sacrifice points reset to 0. Designer note: this unit can be returned to the battlefield multiple times during the battle. So you take one Wilderfiend, you have a bunch of Darkoath heroes, and they're quite cheap. They range from 90 points to 110 points, so they're generally quite cheap. If you are building a Darkoath force, not just a contingent in your traditional slaves, but actually really investing in it, you have multiple heroes. As soon as one of them die, you're basically able to bring back a Wilderfiend. So you constantly are bringing in Wilderfiends depending on if your heroes are dying and how you work that cycle out. But um, what are your thoughts on that one?
This I find this quite interesting. I would say that this ability is what makes it have like a there's a minimum palpable utility to bringing this unit if you are going to bring, I would say, more than one Darkoath hero in an army. If you only have one, I wouldn't really like, because then you're paying for one and then you're paying for the Wilderfiend, and the Wilderfiend is so closely tied to Darkoath over regular slaves to darkness units in your army. So I'm not sure if that would be justified, but if there's a lot of value in building very heavily into the Darkoath theme with this unit.
Yeah, and there's a real cycle here if you look at it, right? The Wilderfiend has to die first, then the hero has to die next. When the hero dies, then that's when you bring back the Wilderfiend. Because look at it, right? Each time a friendly Darkoath hero is slain, if any friendly Darkoath Wilderfiends have been slain, so a Wilderfiend has to be slain before the regular Darkoath hero has to be slain. Then when that happens, on the 2 plus, you bring back a Wilderfiend. So if you think of that recycling mechanic, if you only take one Darkoath hero and it dies before the Wilderfiend dies, because you can't target it outside of 12, and it's got 9 wounds, it might be a little bit harder to kill it, then you lose the chance for regeneration. So to your point, I'd be thinking of 2, possibly 3 heroes again, a Darkoath focused army, and I think that the Wilderfiend comes into its own. Would you take a Wilderfiend on its own in a Slaves to Darkness army, like a Chaos Warriors, a Varangard, whatever, like a
Probably not. I think that this is well designed in its intent to be taken as a companion to Darkoath units. I don't see it having much synergy because it's like it specifically buffs like the main feed on flesh poker chip system, and like the same thing again. It's just like all of these things are keyworded to Darkoath rather than regular Slaves to Darkness. So I think you're very heavily incentivized to take this with the Darkoath army rather than a regular Slaves to Darkness army.
Yeah, if I'm taking Exalted, I'm taking Knights, I'm taking Warriors, 170 points is just too expensive because you're not getting the regeneration. Would I take a Darkoath Chieftain or a Darkoath War Queen in my faction just to get that regeneration buff? Probably not. That's like the space for the sorcerer. Like you're rather a wizard right now. But some considerations, I think, in a Darkoath focused faction, this could be good. I think there's some really nice play with this, especially if you're taking multiple heroes. If you're taking just an average Slaves to Darkness army, maybe not. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not. Maybe best keep it in Fallout.
Yeah, it does. It does. I was saying before the show, and I've said online previously, it does have striking visual similarities to a very iconic monster from the Fallout series. It just looks like that to me. Your mileage may vary, but yeah, uh, find it
I'm
amusing. It's an interesting creature design. Yeah, as seen on Warhammer Plus.
And it has multiple head options. So when you're building it, you've got 2 different horn options, and I think there's 2 or 3 different faces. So you can modify it the best you. And by the way, I believe the law as well is when you are a Darkoath chieftain or when you become a Darkoath chieftain, part of the the transition to be leadership is you have to go over and give the head of the old chieftain to this particular model, and then if you survive, then you become the chieftain. If not, you're just another death on the wall.
Yeah.
Next up, we have our Darkoath Marauders. Our Marauders come in a block of 10, although you get 20 in the box. Move of 6, save of 5, bravery of 6, 1 wound each. Sorry, Marty, we can't make them 2. I
Uh-huh.
appreciate that you tried. We tried,
You tried.
folks, but they're just 1 wound idiots.
Yeah.
They have 2 different weapon options. You can either have the raider weapons or the spears. 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, or 2 attacks, 4s and 4s, with damage 1 or damage 1. Spears having 2-inch range, raider weapons have 1. Champion gets +1 attack. Banner Bearer gives you +1 bravery. The Doom Beater, shout out to this particular name. We had a good laugh. The Doom Beater is a musician, and you get +1 to your charge rolls. There's a couple of rules. We talked a little bit about the oaths before. The oath of the Marauder is if you make an unmodified charge roll of 7+ for this unit, and the unit makes the charge move with that roll, it fulfills its oath. Once this unit fulfills its oath, until the end of the battle, the rend characteristic of this unit's raiders' weapons or the spears are rend 1 instead of nothing. So we want to make sure we hit a 7+ charge. The other rule that we haven't talked about is the Glorious Death. While this unit is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Darkoath hero, each time a model in this unit is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon, pick 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of this unit and roll a dice. On a 5+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So we've got a nice little allegiance ability from Khorne coming out where we take the Bloodborne idiots. What are they called? It's early. It's early on a Monday morning. We're going to do some mortal wounds on the way out.
Skull Reapers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too early
But
for me.
your classic fight on death sort of thing, or not quite fight on death where you get to your full activation, but you can possibly do one last sword strike before you perish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they do a couple of mortal wounds on the way out, which is nice. 80 points. I think that's the
Mhm.
thing, right? For 10 models, you get them for 80 points. So if you're thinking about even your Marauders, like your current classic Chaos Marauders, they're 10 points cheaper. I think they're currently 90 points. These are 80 points, and the War Scrolls are just better. When you look
Yeah.
at the abilities and the benefits, whether it's the oath, whether it's the mortal wounds on the way out, uh, they're just overall better, and they synergize obviously really well with what we're talking about here. Thoughts on the Darkoath Marauder?
I don't quite remember what the base size on the box for these. Is it 28s or 32s on these?
Ooh, I'm going to guess 28s.
Okay, but
I'm
the
guessing
point, yeah,
28s.
yeah, but
Yeah.
they don't look. I don't recall them being on 25s anymore. So that is the difference here. So the point
No,
being is that
there's a lot of leg spreading in this, so I don't know if those
yeah,
leg spreading like are going to get on the 25s.
exactly, yeah. So they're doing their power stance basically. So I think this is you can use them as chaff, of course, in an army like Slaves to Darkness. These can be used as your classic screens where needed. You can invest minimum amounts of points to get a bunch of them off on the table, and even as chaff, they're going to put out a decent amount of attacks. That's 20 attacks. I think yeah, there's an extra attack in the champion, but 21 attacks out of 10 models, and possibly more if you really want to double up on the unit. If you want to build like with the box, you want to build one unit of 20 out of them. They are undivided, so they will get the Eye of the Gods keyword, which can lead to some interesting but small bonuses, all very small. And it's not hard for them to get their oath off. Basically, it is unmodified. You can't just like I automatically charge at a 7 up or with any number of charge bonuses, including Eye of the Gods. But still, it shouldn't be too hard for them to fulfill their oath in a given over the course of a game because it's not exactly 7. It has to just be at least 7, correct?
It's 7 plus.
Yeah.
It's 7
So
plus.
yeah. So I think that's not too difficult. Um, yeah, I like them. Uh, it will be interesting to see where they go, and I know this. We'll talk about this more in fourth edition. With they did say melee weapon ranges are going away. So how many of them could you actually get into combat if you took more than 10 of them in a unit, as an example, even
Mm.
without the spears or with the spears? Uh, so yeah, I think they definitely have a role within the Slaves to Darkness army, and they can put out a surprising amount of attacks for how few points you invest into them.
If you look at some of the synergy that's already cut in a bubble as well, right? So
Hmm.
if they make that 7-inch charge, that's rend -1. So now you could be doing 4 attacks on sorry, 2 attacks with the raider weapons, hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s, now rend 1. That's not too bad. Then you add in the layer of the fact that the Darkoath Chieftain on War Steed, if he fulfills his oath, he gives that +1 to wound aura around the board. So now they're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s within that 12-inch aura from the chieftain. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, rend 1 for 1 damage for 80 points and mortal wounds on the way out on 5 up.
Hmm.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah,
I
you
think to
know,
your point though, I think to your point, if I'm taking them as chaff, I think, and maybe something we haven't quite talked about in its fullest yet, is the fact that Warcry warbands are disappearing. So all of those chaff units, whether it was the Iron Golems, the Splintered Fang, all the things that you would add into your traditional Slaves to Darkness warriors, knights, chosen type builds, you've got a gap to fill if you're looking for that chaff, if you're looking for those screens, if you're looking for those cheap objective scorers, this might fit into that space really nicely.
yeah. Some of the war bands are staying, but they're generally much more expensive. Like one of my favorites, at least aesthetically, is the Be'lakor warband, and that has its use, but it's like you only get 8 models, and it's 30 more points than the 10 here, and much more limited synergies, for example. So these are there are quite a few gaps that are going to be left in the toolbox by Slaves to Darkness once Warcry, the first edition Warcry units leave the scene, basically. However, the Marauders overall can pull a lot of different roles at once with how versatile they are.
I also didn't mention that they're battle line.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who's investing into your troops and you're really trying to get those, for example, big blocks of chosen, or if you're trying to build into, knights, or you got a really expensive army, and if you're looking for a cheap way to get your battle line requirements, again, the Darkoath Marauder might fit into your list. So, Marty, do we like this?
Yes.
Would you take it in a traditional, and I use the word traditional because there's so many different builds, right? Whether it's knights, Bavarian guards, warriors, chosen, everything else in between, right? There's lots of different build, but if you were building some form of armor-cladded Slaves to Darkness, would you consider putting Darkoath into your slaves?
In the near future, possibly not, but over a medium to long term plan, more likely than not.
And what about, would you? I mean, I'm not going to ask that question because it's evident. If you were going to build a Darkoath faction focus, you've got to take the Marauders. You've just got to. So, what a dumb question I was going to ask. Again, I haven't had coffee. It's early in the morning. It's the only time Marty and I could grab before he jets off, and we go to this reveal. Wonderful. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully I'm not completely incoherent when I listen back to this video.
You're doing great.
Look, hey man, I'm wearing collars. Like, I'm wearing a collar, and like this is work time, my friend. The last model in this box is the Darkoath Fellriders. So you get 5 of them. These are our roided up horses. You can build them either to have javelins, where you can see that there is a missile weapon profile and a melee profile for the javelin, or you take the broadsword, which is the only melee, so there's no shooting attack. So, and then in addition, the horses have the trampling hooves, so that's the attack profile. The javelin is kind of what you expect from a javelin, very similar to the Marauder Horseman, where it's I think their range is 10 maybe. So this is range 12, 1 attack, hits on 4s, wounds on 4, Ren -1 for D3 damage. It's a pretty solid javelin attack. Then you got the javelin in combat, which is 2 attacks, 4s, Ren 1 for 1. Alternatively, the broadsword has 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, Ren 1 for 1. The trampling hooves is range 1, 2 attacks, 4s, no rend for 1 attack. So a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of attack profiles. Personally, I built mine with javelins. Mostly because 1, I wanted the shooting profile, but 2, where is it? And 2, it also benefits from the Oath of the Raider.
Yeah,
so what are the
I
rules?
do feel like the javelin is the right way to go here.
Yeah, like I look at the broadsword, and like I had to take a double check even just then. I'm like, it's only damage 1. Like, I imagine, like, if I'm giving up a D3 shooting attack, I expected like damage 2 maybe from the broadsword.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt the broadsword felt flat. A couple of extra rules we haven't talked about, and then I'll get your thoughts, Marty. Champion +1 attack, standard bearer +1 to bravery, musician +1 to charge rolls, which is great. Swift attackers, love this roll. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target this unit. In addition, if this unit is targeted by attacks made by an enemy unit that received the Unleash Hell command in that phase, those attacks only score a hit on an unmodified roll of a 6. That rule we've seen very similarly to, is it Ogres? Is it Ogres with the Mournfang pack? Is it they shut down Unleash Hell, or they reduce it to a 6?
That's the Morbeg Knights. They're the ones when they charge, they turn off Unleash Hell.
Yeah. We've seen some Unleash Hell shenanigans in the past. I love this. I really do love this rule.
Yeah.
The other one as well is the Oath of the Raider. So if this unit finishes a charge move within half an inch of an enemy unit that is more than 3 inches from other units in your army, so basically the enemy, if these were the first unit to charge that unit and they're not already locked into combat, it will fulfill its oath. Once the unit fulfills its oath, until the end of the battle, the rend characteristic for the Marauder Javelins or Broadsword is rend -2 instead of rend -1. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
5 models, 125 points, 2 wounds apiece, 5 up save, a move of 12, bravery of 6. It is not a battle line, except if your general is Darkoath. So if you did want to make something like the Chieftain or the War Queen your general, it would make these battle line. Otherwise, they are not battle line. So
Yeah.
what's your thought on the Fellriders?
So the first thing that jumps out to me is that we are back to 5-point increments. I'm not sure if that was just possibly an oversight, or they wanted to make sure that 2 units of 5 of them cost 250 points, and they wanted to make sure that was the right number because people probably aren't taking just one of them; they're taking them in pairs during testing or whatever. That's the only thing that comes to mind because it does stand out with the 5-point increments there. We are at the end of the edition, and there could be 5-point increments there, but I don't think that this is indicative of anything beyond that. It's just stand out. But this unit overall is, I think, probably the most versatile. It has the most utility of the 4. Granted, the selection is small, but I really do like this unit. It's proper fast cavalry. They can keep up with your army if your entire army is mounted. Say if you are taking all Chaos Knights and like Knights of the Empty Throne army, this is definitely has good utility there. They can buff themselves. They're very self-sustaining. They don't have to worry about being near the Wilderfiends. They don't have to worry about being near the Lord on Horse, though. I think the Darkoath Chieftain on horse probably synergizes well with them because it's not hard to get 5 of these wholly within 12 inches of him, and you can get that power pair. Where if the Chieftain fights first, granted you have to finish the charge with the Fellriders first for their oath to be fulfilled. Then you do it with the Lord on Horse, and then you do the Lord on Horse fighting first, so they both fulfill their oath. Yeah, I think
There's some
uh-huh.
sequence maths going on that you've got to really plan this out. But if you do it, it's going to
Mhm.
pay off.
Yeah.
Or you just charge 2 different units as long as you're staying
Mhm.
within 12 inches. But like,
Yeah.
just pick your battles because that chieftain is not going to stay around.
Mhm. But I do like their shooting attack. It's relatively, I don't want to say strong, but it's certainly good for the amount of points you're paying in a Slaves of Darkness army, because that's one of the things, especially with how the meta is right now in the twilight days of 3rd edition, that like with Flesh Eater Courts, especially Slaves to Darkness, has no problem killing the units in front of it, but it needs to be able to threaten those characters which are behind the units, generating those noble deed points. And while I don't think that you're going to kill a Flesh Eater Courts character with 1 unit of 5 Fellriders, it's that D3 damage is enough to make them think twice about positioning.
Yeah, if you think about them unbuffed, right? They've got 5 attacks total for the unit, 10 if you reinforce the unit. Half of those attacks go through on an average 4 plus without all out attack. Without any to wound buffs, then half of them go through. So a unit of 5 unbuffed, you're likely to get 1 or 2 to go through. So, the damage potential is there. It's just that you got to really invest them to make the most of it. I love the utility of the javelin because you can do a little bit of chip damage, and then when you charge, you also get extra damage. And the oath, I don't know why I would take the broadsword.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, you get an extra +1 to hit, so it means that you could be hitting on 2s with all out attack. And yes, you get the extra attack. I guess you're really planning out a buffed unit as opposed to, I don't know, like you're
Yeah.
planning around best case. But to me, the javelin's where I prefer. Like, I
Yeah.
think the utility, to your
Absolutely.
point, is where I want to be.
Yeah. I'm glad that they are not, but they are battle line only in a Darkoath army, because I could see that this unit, regardless of how it's like how relatively expensive it is for how many bodies you get, because you're only getting 5 of them for 125 points, and on that 5-up save, these are very fragile for the amount of points you're paying for them, especially in this army. But if they were battle line, I still think people would just like take 3 units of them and call it a day. So yeah.
I'm gonna rewind what I just said, right? I just said that I prefer javelins over broadswords, and I think it's my play style. When I think about why I said that,
Hmm.
it's my play style. I see them on the flanks, harassing, scoring objectives, charging into units that I want to, whether it's to soak up that unleash hell, whether it's to pin down a critical unit so my other harder hitting units can go in or delay them from getting in. That's how I envision Fell Riders.
I think that's the right way to play them personally. That's why I think that that's the right choice.
But and why I'm retracting my thoughts just ever so slightly is if you think about the broadsword for a second. So I'm trying to think of a world where like I really want to use a broadsword. So if I hit the charge and I get the Oath of the Raider and they're now Ren 2, right? I apply all that attacks. So they're now 3 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s, Ren 2 for 1 damage. That's definitely a better attack profile if I'm focused on melee. But damage 1, considering damage 1 is, I guess, just doesn't sit well for me with the broadsword. So, which is why I kind of lead into the javelin.
Hmm.
But if you're thinking of someone who is, you've got your Darkoath Chieftain on horse, you're going to charge in with, the champion and the unit. Maybe you've reinforced them into a unit of 10. Then maybe the broadsword's better. But then again, you've got more javelin attacks. I'm really conflicted.
Hmm.
The utility is why I went javelins,
Yeah.
but I'm sure someone in the chat is going to give me a good argument to the broadsword. I don't see it. It's the damage on the broadsword that pulls me away from it every time. Every time I try to justify it, I'm like, damage 1.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think you can mix and match the weapons in the unit either. I don't remember,
No,
like
no,
going.
it's one or
Okay,
the other. It's
yeah,
one or
yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah. So, yeah, I would still pick the javelins because of that overall utility.
If someone in the chat has an idea of why they would pick broadsword, leave it in here. Marty, would you make your general Darkoath to unlock them as battle line?
If you're taking a Darkoath army to begin with, if you're all in on this box, then them just being battle line is an added bonus. In a world where I'm looking at the whole roster, I don't think I'm taking a Darkoath general just to make these battle line.
No, I
Yeah.
think they're too squishy.
Mhm.
But I will say actually before I actually in my myself, the Darkoath War Queen with the ward save of 5 is a much tankier general. She got 6 wounds, a 4-up save, a 5-up ward. If I'm making a Darkoath faction, if I'm building an army around Darkoath, the Darkoath War Queen is probably my general.
Mhm. Yeah, that is true.
I
And
mean,
I'm think
still take Horse
no,
Lord, and can still go out with the Fell Riders. But my general, I think that Infernal Rune Shield means I'm not relying on the Eyes of the Gods table. And if I do, then I can take extra benefit on the Eyes of the God, in addition to the 5-up ward.
yeah. I'm thinking about, of course, knowing me and my, I've played most of the events I've gone to in the past year have been with Knights of the Empty Throne, and I do believe the rule says that you can only all mounted units can run and charge. Doesn't mean that you can run and shoot with these, which is a shame. But you can't do everything, of course, in a Warhammer army. So uh, that was what sprang to mind. It's like, what does a Knights of the Empty Throne list look like? They're not battle line, but you already have battle line in the form of Varangard and Chaos Knights, which you're probably also taking in that list. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip ahead to the list section. Or
No, this is actually perfect. This is actually where I wanted to go to because I was
okay,
going to say, look, all of these war scrolls we've talked about and we've given strengths and we've talked about the challenges with the war scrolls. Are there any units here that are auto include in a Slaves to Darkness? No, there are absolutely no auto includes. It's not the greatest the hotness is in this box. but there's a lot of really interesting mechanics here. And I guess it depends on, are you someone who's dedicating themselves to the Darkoath? Are you someone who's adding some extra models into their army for flavor? And if you do, I guess then put that context in your playstyle, right? Because if you're running an army based on Knights and Vanguard, then maybe the Fellriders are going to be for you. If you're someone who is running a different version, or maybe you want some chaff or some screens and you just don't want to run Furies or whatever it might be, you've got something here. And I guess my question then to you is, if we were going to play around with Darkoath, what are the sub factions that are kind of standing out to us? Is there particular ones that you think kind of work better?
Well, certainly the standout one that it's had its hand up in the class the whole time for pick me is Ravagers. The Ravage, yeah. So again, we're looking at this box with the retrospective on third edition, which is about to pass us. We're about to pass beyond it, and the list that was definitely doing very well. I believe. Have you had Benjamin Hosking on your stream?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So he did well with this list regularly in basically almost playing a death control style army, where it's either a Darkoath hero or a Demon Prince hero in the Ravagers subfaction, and he's bringing back cultist units and then maybe combining their synergies with Archaon, who's also on the table, to make sure that your very fragile units always get the opportunity to fight the actual fight on death rule, which I can imagine still right now compounds very well with even just the regular Darkoath troops, where no matter what, whether they're charged first or they get to fight first, they're always going to have an opportunity to fight with their full profile, and then they're going to have an opportunity to do mortal wounds on the way out when your opponent kills them. So the value in Ravagers overall will synergize well with the full Darkoaths. Whether you want to maybe not do that tournament style build where it's like, well, I can't afford Archaon in my list, or I just don't like having a model this big to carry around in my local game store. All of these Darkoath units probably have a home in the Ravager subfaction.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've nailed it by talking a little bit earlier about Knights of the Empty Throne. If you want to run more of a horsey build, or at least include them into your Vanguard or Knight version, Ravengers. If you're building around Darkoath as a core element of your faction, Ravagers, yes, absolutely. Despoilers, no real benefit. Kabbalist, no real benefit. I mean, yes, it talks about the Eyes of the Gods table, but your heroes are not really wizards, so like it's not the biggest. Like, you're gonna have to supplement it somehow. Legion of the First Prince was an interesting one for me, and I'm looking at it going, is there something in it? And I don't think there is.
I'm sure someone, and I can think of a certain someone in the Australian scene who's like, all right, time to make this work. But I think that's about it. I think it's more like some very excellent player with a very high skill ceiling is maybe an edge case overall for some of these other sub factions. But I think it's if you're all in on the Darkoath, Ravagers is the one for you, and then Fellriders have utility. In what they do, not necessarily being your battle line, but in Knights of the Empty Throne, I think they also have a home.
I could also see a mixed force. So you talked about the Fellriders in Knights of the Empty Throne. I can see Marauders in Host of the Everchosen. So if you're building around warriors or Chosen are really expensive when you start reinforcing them. So if you want to get a cheap battle line, maybe you want a contingent, again, some screens, some chaff, some people that go around and like take objectives while your core Chosen are going towards the key threats. I could see a nice little blended Host of the Everchosen with Darkoath as well. So, but like not a lot of them really sing out. Like, a lot of them are very specifically keyworded, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of options for you. Now, know that there is, by the sounds of it, an Army of Renown coming in the future. We don't know when. That's not going to benefit Slaves to Darkness players, but it would allow you to take some of this Darkoath stuff. We don't know what's included just yet, but if you pick up this box and you're thinking about maybe including them into your Tzeentch or to whatever can ally into your Chaos Gods, might be an opportunity. Hell, 80-point Marauders is a not bad little ally.
Yeah. And also, if you did want to use more than one allied unit because they support each other so well, like there isn't a Darkoath subfaction in this supplement. Where the Ravagers subfaction already has enough benefits, but everything that makes the Darkoath great within this box is all printed on those warscrolls. So you could ally a sort of power pair, like to take maybe the hero, the Lord on the Horse, and then it may be a double reinforced unit of either, well, not double reinforced, I'm sorry, singular reinforced unit of either the Fellriders or the Marauders, and use them, as you said, like in Tzeentch, or another army that could use all of those bodies and all of those attacks.
Corn.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for cheap things to die, right? Those
Mhm.
Marauders are perfect for Corn. So
Mhm.
look, again, like if this works for you, awesome. I really dig the models as a fringe Slaves to Darkness player. I say that because I've got a whole big collection now, but I actually haven't hit the table yet with Slaves. They're still on the painting desk. I definitely see a space for them. But I'm also not too focused on building lists just because, again, 4th edition is on the cusp. If I'm taking this to a local game store, I'll absolutely play around with it and have a lot of fun. By the time I paint this up, I probably miss a bunch of the GTs. So depending on where you're at, depending on your paint style and your play style, you might want to get this on the table. If not, maybe it's a wonderful 4th edition and a project for you. But it's a sweet little box, has a lot of cool rules. Who knows what 4th edition looks like? I think your point of Archaon and or Be'lakor are nice additions to this army, whether it is Ravengers with Belly or Archaon to have that distraction piece and also a durable hero. Because if you are building around Darkoath, it probably lacks punch. Like, it doesn't have a lot of mortal wounds. It doesn't have a lot of high rend. It has a low armor saves on average. So you probably want some durability somehow. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about really building in and leaning into Darkoath. But it's also at least a great way just to blend into your slaves and bring a different dimension to the army.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. I'm looking forward to see how this shapes up on the table. I will say is I'm the tournament organizer for the Atlantic City Open, which is still going to be a 3rd edition event. So all of this stuff, and maybe we'll see maybe some more Slaves to Darkness products come out because we're still waiting on that last book that was previewed, which could be out by then. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this stuff is incorporated into those lists, because regardless of how well they perform, Slaves to Darkness is always and will continue to be a very popular army because of how you can field it and all of the diversity of choices and options and loadouts. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what other players come up with and what I end up doing with this box as well.
I'm actually really excited about painting it, to be honest. It's always something like the Queen has been sitting there on my desk for a while, looking at me with judgment, like, why won't you paint me? And I think I finally got the idea of how I'll do. I want a more darker skin tone, more like, I mean, they've been in the sun. They've got a bit more leathery type skin. They're maybe not as glamorous and that Euro, looked after really nicely with sunscreen and shade of the cities of Sigmar. These people have been in the thick of things, so I want that to be represented. Marty, I've got 2 final questions for you, but if you are thinking about grabbing the Darkoath box, I will remind you, if you want to support the channel, think about Element Games in the UK, Warpfire Minis in the USA, and Gap Games in Australia. Link is down below. Or if you want to grab your hobby supply in general, click the link and help the channel. A lot of cool stuff are coming in 4th edition, but and check I actually made a post the other day on Patreon. Anyone can read it, just a channel update, so feel free to check that out if you want to know what's happening behind the scenes. But Marty, 2 final questions and then I've got to go to work. Question 1: if you were in control of the Darkoath range and you could add anything to this range, what's the next kit for you? What's the thing that you think is missing?
Yeah, the thing I think is missing is, oh gosh, it's just one of those things. I would like to see some sort of. Uh, I'm most fond of the Corvus Cabal and their utility that they provide to slaves to darkness. So I'd like to see maybe some ninja or like these very much tree walker, very stealthy type people who are able to provide that utility of deploying. Like they're not meant to really be in combat. They might have a shooting attack of just like very meager, but they're meant to hide in terrain. They're meant to maybe deploy out of reserves somewhere around the board. I'd like to see a Darkoath unit there of just like a effectively replacing Corvus Cabal.
Yeah, I think similarly, I could see like a city. I mean, I've been working on the unit, the Cities of Sigmar, the Wilder Corp. It has
Hmm.
the bunch of
Yeah,
skirmishers. They've got a bunch of doggos with them. I wouldn't mind that version. Give me some
yeah,
skirmish shooting Dark Oath with some animal familiars.
yeah.
I'm on board for that. I've had a lot of fun painting dogs. I've got 12 dogs to paint. If anyone kills them, I will no longer be friends. You're not allowed to kill my dogs.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
last the last question for you is we talked a lot about fourth edition, and I want to talk about you. Like, what are you most excited, or what are your thoughts about so far about fourth edition,
Hmm.
based on what we know so far from Warcom?
Yeah, it definitely looks interesting overall. And this is simply my opinion. Your mileage may vary. In that I've seen Age of Sigmar learn certain lessons from the development of Warhammer 40,000 as it's evolved as a game over, I would say, the new era, like 2016 or 2017 onwards. Every time we adapt something from Warhammer 40,000, we kind of learn from its mistakes and then we adapt it to make Age of Sigmar a better game, even if we are tend to be like copying the homework, as it were, from the sci-fi game that this channel is not about. I understand that. So I've seen certain things in the articles that pique my interest as in, oh, this is like 40K, but etc. And granted, we haven't seen everything. Like we're on a long march. If patterns are to be used at all in terms of trying to be a guessing game, we'll have the core rules as sort of like a free PDF sometime in the middle of June, and then a launch box, usually regardless of game system, launches on the July 4th weekend, like at the very end of I believe they either the beginning or the end of their fiscal year is June, which is why
Yeah,
like
it
the
is.
big release is right after that. So, and then with that will probably come the indexes. Whether the indexes are before the launch box or after, I'm not. Who can say? It's especially with the shipping issues that Games Workshop have had, unfortunately, over the past few, like I would say, maybe past few months or so. But like, it's not one particular rule. It's just like they've definitely tried to change the game in a way that formalizes certain things. Like it's not called each unit doesn't have a snowflake. They might have a snowflake rule, in as in this unit's main ability is this, and nothing else in the army is good at doing what this one thing is. But instead of it having a narratively based rule name, they tend to have more standardized language, which is always helpful. Um, Certain bookkeeping things like that will make it easier, like the color coding of timing of abilities and the icons. And someone asked in a group chat that I'm in, he's a librarian, so he's all about making sure things are archived properly because that's his job. He works at a very large library in the city of Philadelphia. And it's like, well, this is future proofing a lot of things because if there's a certain icon, and I just gave an example of like a spell, and it's like cast a spell wholly within 12 inches if successfully cast. Enemy units cannot use this abilities with this icon or abilities with this icon. And they don't even have to say the words, they can just use those two symbols. And if the gamble of moving to that system pays off, we will not always have to worry about longer verbiage. We can have a centralized understanding, almost like Warcry, with all of the little symbols, so long as they remain
Mm.
readable. Because like the main issue I think in Warcry for me personally is a lot of the symbols look very similar to one another. As long as we don't have that issue in Age of Sigmar, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the feeling that I'm getting so far is they are, because you and I have both been on the journey from first edition. We've gone from first to second. We've seen second to third, and I remember Malign Portent's campaign was the first time to introduce command points and stratagems. Prior to that, only your general can issue a command ability, and like there was a lot of restrictions. So we've kind of moved through, and I think everyone would say that command abilities now in general are a good addition, but rewind to first edition and people were in fear of stratagems. They were in fear of command abilities and things like that. So over time, it's never been perfect, and it's going to be clunky when we get to it. But it kind of feels like right now that they're trying to do chess where it's easy to pick up and it's hard to master. And I don't know if that's true right now for third edition with all of the things that are happening, like monstrous rampages, heroic actions. There's so much, timing sequence of start, during, end. Like it's really hard to get into it. So I think they're trying to bring the philosophy as simple to pick up, hard to master, and the complexity is less in the rule keeping, more about the in-game interaction. And I guess that's where really good players who know their rules don't have to consciously think about their rules. They're thinking about what's unfolding onto the table. I'd like to see more people in that space doing that, but there'll be a lot of time to talk about fourth edition, folks. I know I haven't been really vocal at the moment with my opinion, and that stuff will come in the near future. There was no rage videos about removal of units, but there's look, this is not the time, this is not the place, but overall, I'm excited about what fourth edition brings. I have seen the evolution from first to second to third and now to fourth. So there will be pain. We will lose some things. We will gain some things, but the community just continues to grow strength by strength. So we will talk more in the future, and we will talk more about Darkoath. But Marty, to wrap this up, if people want to learn more about you, they want to see all your cool painting and all the hobby that you're doing, where can they find you?
Currently, they can find me on Instagram. You can either search my name, Martin Orlando, or my username, which is one word, The Wandering Prince. I'm also still available on Twitter or X, again, under my name or CV_consigliere. You can also find me on various Discord groups or Facebook, where I'm usually talking about all things elf or all things slaves to darkness now, because I've picked up this faction so quick. But that's basically it for me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. No, thank you. Check it out. I'll make sure to include your links on the video. Again, thanks Games Workshop for sending it. I can't wait to see more of this. Obviously, it's only 4 warscrolls. There's only so much we can talk about with 4 warscrolls, but I hope that's enough to either contextualize your purchase, start thinking about how you use this, how you start thinking about the future with 4th edition. Again, we keep talking about it, and it's because there's no point talking about the complexities of 3rd and how we build it and show off the lists and the combinations, because that's going to quickly change. And by the time you build your box, and I don't know if you're like me, but by the time you build this box, 4th edition would have hit, and it was all for nothing. But get excited. Sweet models, interesting rules. Who knows what happens in 4th edition? If you're interested in Conan the Barbarian and a more human-esque barbarian chieftain type feel, this is for you. If you love your warriors, you love your armor, and you just want to get more armor, it's probably not for you. But there's yeah, I dig it. I dig it a lot. Cool. I'm rambling. I got to go to work. Marty, thanks for your time. Hope everyone enjoyed that discussion. Glad to be back on the YouTubes. If you are thinking about buying it, go check out the link. Otherwise, leave a comment in the comment section. Tell me what you're thinking about and what you're thinking about with this particular box. Was there something we forgot about? I'm sure there was. I'm sure there's some really cool synergy we completely missed. We've only had this box for about a week now, so I'm sure as we percolate and put it back in the oven, more ideas will kind of start rising to the surface. That was a really terrible analogy. I'm just going to go. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, Marty. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a double one on a spellcast.